Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where I was just messing around with the tooltip still and accidentally fixed it. So we don't need this debug log. So the only change that I made was to these two lines, and we are now, rather than multiplying by the reference resolution, we are multiplying by the rect width and height of the canvas rect transform, which we are declaring here. And then we just drag it in here. And when we do that, oh, and I also changed the mouse offset to 32. I don't know if I'm going to leave it there. We'll see. So that's where we're at right now. And when I ran this in a test in 5:4 aspect ratio, it worked fine. So we're going to just check to make sure that it works in other aspect ratios and that I like the new mouse offset. And if that's the case, then we are just going to move on, which would be wonderful. Come on. You can do it. I know you can do it. Okay. So, as you can see, it works in 5:4 ratio. Hang on, didn't I delete that? Did I not save? I didn't save it. Oh well, that's fine. So it works in 5:4 aspect ratio, and I'm just going to go ahead and skip the tutorial for right now so we can see a little bit better. And I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to free aspect. And as you can see, it appears to work pretty much fine in free aspect. Now, the tooltip does not lock onto the screen, but that's okay. We can just add in a nice little clamp. So, let's go ahead and check 4.3, and it works fine. Let's go ahead and check 5.2. It works fine. Or rather, 3.2. Let's go ahead and try 16.10. It works fine. 16.9. It works fine. And standalone. Yeah, it just all works fine. Excellent. So I'm just going to stick it back in free aspect so that we can see the best. And with that, let's go ahead and save this. And let's create ourselves a small clamp function here so that the tooltip gets clamped onto the screen. So, let's do a... I would love it if they had like a vector 4, but they actually do. They do have a vector 4. We could just like steal that, but I'm going to do a pair of vector 2s instead. So, public vector 2 x clamp, y clamp. Okay, there we go. And then we're going to clamp the corrected mouse position. So corrected mouse position.x. Actually, we could do it in the same line, but I'm not going to. Corrected mouse position.x equals mathf.clamp, and we are going to be clamping corrected mouse position.x, and it's going to be between xclamp.x and xclamp.y. And then we're going to do the same thing for corrected mouse position.y, and that's going to be equal to mathf.clamp, and this is going to be corrected mouse position.y, yclamp.y, and yclamp. Actually, this needs to be yclamp.x and yclamp.y. There we go. Okay, and then we will set up those particular clamps in the inspector here to clamp that right down. So, our position of 0, 0 should be fine. And I'm just going to go ahead and clear out all of the debug data that I had going in there. That's now irrelevant. So our X-clamp should go from 0 to 0. And then, realistically, this should... The Y-clamp should basically be... We can do this algorithmically. We can get rid of this, because we have a reference to the transform. So what we can do is say between 0 and canvas rect transform.rect.width minus, and this is going to be our rect transform, so rect transform .rect.width, and then we'll add in, say, a padding of 10. And actually, we'll go ahead and make that a variable. Public float clamp. This will be the clamp offset. And we're going to make that equal to 10f for now, so that it clamps 10 pixels away from the edge of the screen. And we'll clamp it at clamp offset, and then over here we will subtract clamp offset, like so. And then canvas rect transform.rect.width, and this should actually be height, minus rect transform.rect.height minus clamp offset. Okay, so now we've done it algorithmically, and it should auto-change the clamping based on our different aspect ratios. If it works in a single aspect ratio, it should work in every aspect ratio, doing it this way. So, the question is, does it work? And the answer to that is maybe? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But hey, this should be the tooltip actually quasi-done. I mean, we're not doing like a... We're not changing the size of the tooltip based on the content or anything. But here we go. Hey, look at that. Beautiful. Now, up here is actually wrong. Yeah. Okay, but it works on the X. We need to adjust it on the Y because I forgot that we are set in the... We're set to a pivot point of 0, 1. So it pivots up here rather than down here. So in order to fix that, we can just come in here and we can set our clamp offset on the Y axis to simply be clamp offset. And then on the minimum, we want to add in all of this, but we want to add rather than subtract. Okay. There we go. That should be correct. And that's all because the pivot point changed everything. But now it should work on the Y-axis as well. And we can always change that clamp offset if we want it later on, but I think for right now it's good. So that way the tooltip will always remain on the screen, the tooltip is properly scaling, and it's much less embarrassing. Hello. The tooltip doesn't work now. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Because this is min and this is max. I think we just need to invert it. And then just leave this sign change here. And I think that will do the trick. Good old clamp. Not being flexible between whether it's the minimum or the maximum. Oh well, I probably would have coded it the same way, because I am lazy. As evidenced by the fact that, yet again, this episode goes up in like an hour and 10 minutes. Oh boy, that's exciting stuff right there. Come on. Come on, Unity. So, what are we going to do next? Assuming that this is... Oh boy. Okay, so it's not working on the Y-axis still. Why is it not working here? So the max... Hang on, it's coming from up here, right? Well, no, it's kind of not. Okay, let's take a quick look at this. So the tooltip... Come on. Can't see anything. Okay. So, here we go. We can almost maybe... Nope. There we go. Now we can see things. So the tooltip, we want it to be, like, right about here. which is basically... Yeah, we want it to be clamped to be like right here. Which is y max minus 10. Okay, so the max would be rect.height minus clamp offset. Because we don't actually care about the rect transform.rect.height here. Down here, we want it to be the clamp offset plus rect transform.rect.height. Okay, now that should work, right? Yes. Now that should work. And interestingly, I just noticed we actually don't have a need for a reference to the canvas scaler in here now, so I'll go ahead and delete that. Okay, and as soon as that compiles and goes on in, so the question is, assuming that the tooltip is actually fully fixed now, what are we going to work on implementing next? Well, we've got two major things to work on, and that is implementing packages and routes, and overhauling the world view so that we can actually see where our stuff is. That would sure be nice. So, hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. Perfect. The tooltip is now working correctly. Absolutely excellent. Okay. With that being done, I think the next thing that we need to implement is packages and routes. So the best way to do that would essentially be... Well, the question is, I'm just trying to think about how I want to implement this, at least visually, because... yeah, that could be a big problem. Okay, I'm just thinking here. How do I want to implement this visually? I kind of want to... Okay, let's fire up Inkscape here quick. And let's do a little bit of concept work as soon as it actually launches. There we go. So let's go ahead and get ourselves a hexagon. And we'll do it right about here, holding control so that it actually remains, so that it snaps to axes. And we will go ahead and make the stroke style in pixels be a little bit wider, like 5 pixels, so we can actually see what's going on a little bit here. Okay, and then we can go ahead and move this on over to be right about here, and then down to right about here, actually. We're going to need it to be right about there. Close enough. We don't need it to be perfect. Okay. So, hypothetically, I'm just going to move this over slightly more. There, close enough. So hypothetically, say that this is our playing field here. And the question is, how do we want to visualize routes? Well, the ideal route to do that, no pun intended, would be to have like a curve that comes in, you know, kind of like that-ish, but obviously nothing like that. So essentially it would be similar to our road algorithm if we were to do it that way. And that would be pretty complex to implement. It would be a lot faster if we were to implement, say, something kind of like... We take this down to a triangle. And we do something like, let's align and distribute, center that, path union. And we do something kind of along the lines of this. So we've got, I mean, the rotation is not perfect, but we have a starting point in the center of this hex if this is our pivot point here, we can then swing this up, and we're probably going to need to shrink this down to be about this size here. So if our pivot point is here, we would then be able to swing this up to point here, and then the arrow would just point like that, and then we'd have, I don't know, maybe something like a circle here, or have it color-coded? Maybe have it color-coded, but what I was thinking there was you'd have like a circle here with a bit of text for like Route 1. Why is this in 5th century caps? We'll use Courier New for now. It's not exactly what we'd be going for, but we'll go to around 72. There we go. And it would be something kind of like that. But we need a way to have the text in here, and I don't really want to use world text. Color coding would potentially work. This is what I'm thinking right now, though, is that we just have an arrow going to each one, and that's pretty much that. So we can go ahead and delete these then, and we can take this arrow, and this arrow will actually suit our purposes just fine, I think. Let's make sure that our stroke style is about 5 pixels. And we would execute this, or rather export this. We would execute it. Oh boy. Let's make it about 512 by 256. Let's go ahead and make sure in pixels that this is in fact 512 by 256. Interesting. Interesting. We're going to have to redo this a couple of times to get our proper stroke style here. 512, 56. Okay. I think that's close enough. So then we would go ahead and export this to Unity, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So export this, I'm just going to call it bitmap.ping, and we're going to bring this in over here. It did not actually export because I need to hit the export button. There we go. And we will go ahead and bring that into our sprites. Let's see. Where do we have this currently? I don't think we have it anywhere. We'll go ahead and bring it in here. So this is going to be an actual texture. And we are going to go ahead and have this be alpha is transparency, like so. Max size of 512 is probably fine. And I'm going to go ahead and close Inkscape. There we go. Okay, so we have this created. And we're going to be able to color that easily enough. But for right now, we're going to need to get ourselves a material. And I do not believe we have a materials folder, do we? Well, we do, here. So we'll go ahead and create ourselves a root material. There we go. And this is going to have an albedo of bitmap, and we should rename that. We'll call this root arrow. There we go. And then this is going to be probably actually fade. Yeah, it'll be fade. Perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in there, and next episode, we will start working on our roots. See you all then.